storage, hardware, and system upgrades over the life of the agreement. We currently have 8 patrol vehicles with Axon Fleet body camera systems. That's the body cam and the car cameras. This addition of the 20 body cameras will allow each officer to have a camera. We have utilized Axon cameras since 2018 and have experienced excellent service. The cost of these additional cameras will be $21,509.43 per year for a 5-year obligation. The amount is included in the budget. This purchase is through a competitive bid through Sourcewell as well.
Chief, could I ask a question?
Yes.
We had a discussion sometime within the past couple of years, certainly since COVID. We discussed the body cam issue during a meeting at the Park Theater. Was that contract not with Axon, and is it not? Did that contract not cover or overlap the duration of this proposed contract?
We had to, it was with Axon. So, and then of course they replace the cameras every 2.5 years, but we had, since we're purchasing more cameras, adding 2, we had to do another.
You were building up.
Right. Because we didn't have enough, to cover all the officers.
Did our original agreement, and I haven't gone back to review the agreement that was originally approved by the board. Does this contract carry forward the same terms, conditions, costs, and other contractual provisions that earlier adopted contract covered?
I know it's through the same, replacement and the new docking systems. As far as price wise, negotiating price. Talking about price wise, I'm not sure because I wasn't doing it the first negotiation.
We only, first time around, as I recall, people on the board can refresh my recollection. The city elected to start out with X number of units and build up on that as time goes by and funds were available. And all I'm trying to figure out, are we going to be operating under 2 separate contracts with Exxon, or is this just going to amend and supplement and update a contract we're already in with Exxon?
The way I understand it is it does the latter. It does amend, and that was their recommendation. That way we would not be under 2 separate contracts, and it would be hard for them to keep up with it on their end, and that's why we did this. The answer to that, in my belief, is it has been amended and will be 1 separate contract.
Are there any material differences in this contract and the former contract with the same company?
Same company, same. The only difference is this time we elected not to go with the in-car systems because of the cost being so great. The difference in the storage fees for the in-car was, because of the high def, was so immense. It would have actually doubled that amount of money. So we elected to not go that direction.
And just
Okay,
do
thank
body cam.
This gets everybody a body cam.
Yes.
You don't have to hand them off or anything.
No. That's what we're doing a lot of them.
You'll have a total of 28 of them.
29 or 20.
We'll have 28 total.
Yeah.
And they still replace these every 2 or 3 years or something like
Every
that.
2.5. Or if anything happens to them, even before that, they replace them.
At no cost to us.
Right. At no cost.
Yeah, they have an unconditional guarantee. We've submerged them in water,
Yeah.
wrestling with folks in ditches, and they send us a new replacement.
And with the chair's permission, could I ask some more questions? Is that okay? In the original contract, we had the option for their storage, that you say has gotten cost prohibitive. What is going to be the alternative to using their storage? Do we have our own storage mechanism, or?
No, it's proprietary, like we explained in the first meetings. Axion's proprietary. Their storage is only in their cloud storage. It's to them. Now, if we elect to get out of that in 5 years at the end of this contract, then all that data belongs to us. It's the, we'd have to figure, we would be able to extract just that data, but they won't give you the proprietary software for your own data transfer here at that, at this point.
Understood.
Any other questions from the committee? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else to come before the safety committee? With that, we stand adjourned.
Streets and Sanitation Committee meeting. Tonight, we're considering the purchase of a John Deere mower and a compact excavator. Hand it to Frank.
Yes, we got the John Deere mower is on a state bid. It came in, we could have 10,000 in the budget for it, for the public work or the urban forestry. And it come just a little bit under it. John Deere's a good mower. I like Skag too, but I don't know if they couldn't work out a state bid or source well bid on the Skag. John Deere is a local, so.
Frank.
I would make a motion that we accept the bid from Tri-Green Equipment for this mower.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
And the Mini X, that is a state bid too. It did come in a little bit over what the, what it actually allowed in the budget. It was $866 over. But I think we have enough in the budget to take care of that. I did get a couple extra buckets with it for doing ditch lines and stuff. That is
I guess I'd like to know what does it actually do? I don't know.
It's a Mini X. It's a digging excavator. Like a big track hoe, just a little one. It's more for getting in, kind of cleaning ditches and stuff like that out is what we're going to use it more for, where we can set up on the road. Actually, the backhoe, what we normally use, we got to get in the ditch and we normally mess up the property. This, we can kind of set in the road and dig the ditch and stay in the roadway with it.
It works parallel.
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah,
In line.
yeah.
Also, you guys have been having some problems with that backhoe lately. You've kind of borrowed a couple of trailers from me about 3
Yes.
times to haul it back and forth.
Yeah, we've had haul it to Nashville a couple times for some different things.
Well, I don't see how you've done your job this long without it. So I would personally make a motion to accept the bid.
We have a motion.
Yes, and I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
And with that, the streets and sanitation meeting is adjourned.
Grades. I understand Nathaniel Green will be here momentarily. Ricky, do you care to come up and kind of get us started on exactly what we're going to be looking at tonight?
It's just a brief overview. It's just to get started on plans to upgrade the water treatment plant. It's kind of old, real quick history. Plant was built in 1960, probably completed in 61, 62. They do an upgrade in 1982 of the inside of the building, just basically aesthetics. And then in 2009 is when we did our last upgrade, which that was our high service building that pumps the water out to their system, and just a few upgrades, tube settlers, mixers, just maintenance issues. And then they covered the filters. And that was, I think, a $2.2 million upgrade. Everything on the inside and the pipe gallery and the basins, nothing was done there. So Nathaniel had asked me to give him a list of some upgrades that it needed, brought him in, brought Zeta in. We walked through the whole plant and I gave him a big list of what needs to be done. That's what he's working on now. And I guess just to get the ball moving forward, if you want to move forward with it. It's not something that has to happen tomorrow, but it needs to happen sooner than later.
So we're just basically going to authorize him officially from the committee and recommend to the full board that we engage him to begin the plans for this water plant upgrade.
Yes, sir. And to move forward with any kind of funding. I think he said we'd ranked like 10th. I think.
Yes, we were ranked 10th on the state
SRF.
revolving loan fund. Yes.
Yes. So he's going to kind of give you an overview of everything we talked about when he gets here. I texted him. I said, "You coming?" He said, "Be here at 6:30."
Well, I mean, there's his
He's got-
competition was here at 6:29. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But the plant does need addressing. you
I
know.
agree.
So
Well, he's pretty good. I
Here
mean,
he is, right?
only 2 minutes
You're
behind.
talking about it.
He covered for you.
Google Maps is getting better at anticipating my speeding, I can tell, so.
All right.
Anyway, where did,
He basically gave us a brief overview that he walked through the plant, gave you some upgrade requests.
Yep.
And then here you are.
alrighty. Here I am. So I will hand out.
I look always cheat off his sheet.
Well, that's what I typically do in meetings too, especially if Zena's already got stuff. So anyway, so this is a list of the items that Ricky and I had discussed potentially replacing, upgrading. And I've got them line by line here. Plate and tube settlers, what those are, that we place those in sedimentation basin as part of the process to help to weed out the contaminants before we go into filter. Okay, so right now you have tube settlers. They could stand to be replaced. They've been replaced a few times. Plate settlers are much nicer. You can get a lot more water through them. One of the things that Ricky wanted to try to do was to increase the capacity of the plant by being able to take the entire plant capacity through one basin, so that you'd be able to take one down and clean it if you needed to. Just give some additional resiliency there. And so we basically were looking at plate settlers for this, the 1.1 million, that's the estimate that we had. I think we're actually somewhere in the 900,000 range right now, and that is a newer price. I've gotten that in the last 3 months, but by the time you get there, say 6 months, a year before bidding, it could be 1.1. We just want to make sure that we have that, because we're talking about something that's stainless steel there that'll be there basically forever. So,
I'm going to ask you a question. Are these in any order of priority, or have they been prioritized and just not listed in a priority order?
well, I guess they've been prioritized in our minds, but this list does not really reflect a priority. It reflects a whole project. And so basically what I would do is, let's say that we get to bid time and the money's over 4.81 million. if we did that, then we would prioritize at that point, in my mind, as to what we would take.
Okay, so this is the whole pie.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then sludge collector and piping, what that is, that actually works with those plate settlers. It goes underneath it. It actually collects the sludge, the settled material that comes out, and then pumps it over to a lagoon or backwash basin to be sent off. Then there are raw water pump upgrades. And I don't know if you know this or not, but next to the railroad, that's where your raw water pump system is there. So what we were looking at doing is, I know that Ricky's had some issues with some vortexing, which is when the water level gets up too high there at the dam, he's not able to draw as much water as he should be able to. So you'd think you would get an abundance of water, but he feels like there may be some type of vortex that's being created by the water getting higher, and it causes him a lot of trouble in trying to pump water. And so we're looking at options with being able to upgrade those pumps. Right below that, I have raw water piping rehab, which would be in a similar fashion. Basically, it's all contained within that structure that you see next to the railroad bridge there. Pipe gallery rehabilitation, that's a big one. I don't know if you guys have been downstairs in the water plant before, but right now they're using these small packing crate type things to walk over stuff. And I guess it's been that way since it was originally put in. It's just the pipes have gotten bigger over the years. So now what we're looking at trying to do is potentially take that large pipe that goes through the center of the room and split it into two pipes and place them on the walls. And I believe that we can do that with a little bit of effort. So that's one of the things that we were looking at trying to do there, just to make it safer for everybody. Of course, we'd repaint everything. We'd replace any of the valves and actuators that are down there that would need to be replaced. Basically take the piping back to square one, but hopefully in a better way than it is now.
If you don't mind me asking, I assume that every bit of the water that comes through the city is coming through that room right there.
Absolutely.
How are we going to be able to handle the needs of the city by cutting that in half? Or is it it's such high capacity now, we can do that no problem?
Well, what we can do is basically you would end up having to have temporary coordination. And that's one of the things that I've thought about, is coordinating with the utility districts at the emergency connections to be able to provide you with water while that we're down. Now, you can't provide all of it, but if we get the tanks full and we have those emergency connections to rely on, there may be a case for us to be able to do that until we can get some temporary piping in while they're still working on the main side. Basically, what I see is you'd have it, you would go down completely for a little bit to remove everything. You'd put in some temporary piping that would allow you to use one half of the plant. And then whenever one side got online with what I would call the permanent piping, you'd switch to that side to run, then you'd switch back and take the temporary down and do that as well. Because right now you're well below your peaks are going to be less than what half the capacity of the plant are right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
That's something to think about. Something that wakes me up at night.
I understand. It would us too when the phones ring.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure I'd get woken up right after. So get down here, figure this out. Exterior renovations. It really, the treatment plant, other than us putting a cover over the filters and a different pitched roof on the back side, there really hasn't been much that's been done to the exterior of the building. Is that fair to say?
Since the 80s. And to answer your question, we can run through one basin and two filters while they're doing one side. I don't think we would ever have to use the interconnection unless it was to be a tie-in that would require that.
Okay. Sorry.
Well,
You skipped over the big one.
the big one.
Control building.
Control building renovations. I'm sorry. Exterior renovations and control building renovations really should probably go in hand with the 1.3. Control building renovations. Right now, if you walk into the front of the water treatment plant, you're going to look over to your left and you're going to see basically an HVAC unit that's in the room with you. And I've got some items here for HVAC that's on here, but and posted on the side of it, it says, these are the warning signs of carbon monoxide poisoning. Is that so? Basically, right in the middle of the opening, the foyer, when you walk in, you're going to see that, and then as you walk through, you're going to see that the ductwork is placed at such that it was never really thought about, in the late 50s, early 60s when it was built, this going in, and so you can see that. You can see that the walls, there have been some issues with some dampness getting behind the walls, and we're not really sure what's behind them. There are some, basically what I was kind of looking at doing with the bathroom situation is removing the 2 restrooms that are there now and making them into one large restroom. The offices are a little bit piecemeal. I mean, I'm trying to. The city did most of their own work, as I understand it, and I mean, and it served it well. It's just that, as you go over in time, whenever you do stuff piecemeal, it starts to show up, and so that's one of the big issues that they have. As far as when you walk past the stairwell where that you can go up to the electrical room or down into the pipe gallery, you walk into their control room area, and you see a large control panel that controls the filters. Well, that panel's sitting in the center of the room, and they've had issues over the years with being able to get components to it. It looks like if you were to walk into a nuclear reactor room and try to operate it, it looks exactly like that because it's the same technology from the same time frame. And what we want to do with that is basically take that and split it to the 2 walls, create a sort of an office area, a control room area space there for them to be able to work and operate. Back in the back corner of that room, originally there was like a kitchenette type area. You can tell that from some of the flooring that has been replaced over the years. One of the things that Ricky likes to call it is the old, is it Hardee's?
Yeah, Hardee's.
The old Hardee's tile flooring. If you know that yellow tile that Hardee's used to have in it, that's the same tile. I think when they built the Hardee's, they probably shipped the, or vice versa, they shipped the other setup over there, had that finished out. So basically redo all that, redo everything in the lab, which when you walk in on the left-hand side, you're going to see that HVAC unit with the warning signs of carbon monoxide on it. On the right-hand side, you're going to be able to walk into the lab, refurnish the lab, change up some of the casework that's in there, anything that is broken or has any problems with it. Then when you move upstairs, so you move upstairs into the electrical room, there are some areas with some significant cracking. Typically, I'm not worried about cracking when it goes through mortar joints, but when it goes through block, that ends up being a different signal, right? So there are some issues in the upstairs area. We don't know where that it continues. I would assume that it would continue down through the floor. We probably need to look into framing. I'd look at putting a different style roof, likely a pitched roof similar to the roof that's on the back of the over the basins now, which the roof there needs to be replaced anyway. That's something that Ricky and I've talked about.
Are you just trying to offload the floor load there, take the roof load and spread it to the exterior walls to eliminate the issues there?
No, I think that the roof actually does need to be replaced. And I think that after working with all the flat roofs and stuff around, I really don't like flat roofs, and flat roofs to me just, if you can change that, particularly since the back, we've already put a pitched roof on it. If there was a way to do that, that's what I would recommend there. And then that, I guess, going through all that stuff, now that's going to be where the $1 million is. Now the outside, the exterior rehabilitation, the 300,000 that I have there. I was just looking at basically sprucing up the exterior, making it look similar to some of the other buildings on campus. In 2010, we did 2010 is when we applied for it. I believe it didn't actually get completed until 2012, a high service building where all the clean water is pumped from the plant out of the water system. The way that was built down there, the way that structure looks, I'd like to take the plant and make it look more like that. Now, how do you do that? There's a million different ways that you can. Sometimes splashing a coat of paint on the outside of the bricks is the way to do it, and just making some of the window accents that they have, or that old style that looks more like a sort of like a rubber on, I don't really know what it looks like. I'm not familiar. I'm not extremely familiar with that, with architecture as much as beyond structures. So, but anyway, that's with the exterior renovations. Security upgrades. We did talk about upgrading the camera systems, upgrading automation, fencing, just getting it to where that, you have basically an up-to-date system. 125,000 may be a little bit heavy there, but I don't know if you're wanting to go, and get it into an actual program to where that it's being able to be seen all over the city, or have that be, have that be something there. Electrical renovation. I'm sorry, I skipped HVAC upgrades. HVAC upgrades, basically upgrading the HVAC that you have, all the duct work. Of course, the other component that I had, the control building upgrades, we would basically be changing all the drop down ceilings and stuff like that, the flooring, the walls, the duct work, and the new HVAC unit would basically be that HVAC upgrades portion. Electrical renovations, redoing the electrical at the existing building may not be as difficult as we had expected, but I've already brought my electrical engineer in. With everything that we are looking at, though, he said that he wants to have another day to come back down and tell me exactly what we're looking at before committing to saying that it's, that we don't have to do quite as much. I will tell you that we just bid the upgrade for West Warren Viola's wastewater treatment plant. Basically have a new generator that's going to be out there, upgraded all the electrical to where that we could expand the plant, possibly double the size here in a few years. Just trying to do all these things to prepare for the future. And the pricing that I got for electrical on that, and these were bid prices, ranged all the way from 936,000 all the way up to 1.75 million in 3 bids. And so, so that's why that I have the 1.1 number there. Their plant there is a sewer plant. Sewer is a little bit more complicated, but that plant is going to be 1/4 the size of your water treatment plant capacity wise. So that's the reason I have the 1.1 million there, basically as a placeholder. Chemical building upgrades. What we would look to do there is there are several large chemical tanks that are not being used anymore. We would basically take those out. And then we would put in new chemical feed systems. And that $150,000 number is pretty close to what I had a project bid for on chemical additions here back in April. We looked at having basically 4 chemicals fed, 4 new tanks, and basically a sort of a SCADA control system that allows those chemical systems to run based on what Ricky and the guys need. And so that's around where I got that. Concrete improvements, that's going to be some of those interior upstairs renovations that I was talking about. And then if there's anything that needs to be done on the settling basin whenever we take it down to put the plate settlers in, because I think it's that settling basin's basically original. It's been expanded. It's original. The flocculators we added on the front side.
The flocculators have been, it's been added to.
Okay.
I think in 82.
Yeah.
They added 2 more flocculators. Yeah. And let the basins originally.
That's I just wanted to make sure of that. I was pretty sure.
Same filter bottles was there in 1960.
Yeah. So that's the construction area. Of course, down below that, we have engineering design. We have other engineering. Other engineering typically is going to be those things that if we have to have an environmental permit or something like that. I don't anticipate that here. That's the reason that number is light. It's 15 grand. Geotechnical and surveying. Basically, I would get a new survey of everything that we need information on. We do have some older surveys, but we've also had work done to grading and stuff like that since then, since the 80s. And so just making sure that we hit those elevations, that would be the The idea, particularly talking about doing a type of survey within the pipe gallery to make sure that everything is at the elevation that we think that it is, so that whenever we go to put stuff back together and it works, because if it doesn't work, then that means that we're more likely to be out of water. Right? So, and then inspection, this particular project would have a full-time on-site inspector that I would have here basically from the beginning of the project until the end. Whenever there were people here working, they would be here with them to,
And who does that person work for?
typically me, James C. Haley.
Okay, so that is so that's a fee paid to you
That's
through
correct.
the inspection.
Yes, sir. That's an hourly rate. $70 an hour is the fee that we have. And then we also have mileage, 50 cents a mile.
Okay.
Then I also have legal here, 20,000 for legal. I don't have anything in here for, and I'll note this because it could potentially be in project contingency. I don't have anything for project interest, which would be if you had a loan that we were taking out from XYZ entity in order to basically fund the gap between now and when you took on a bond from state revolving fund loan. Of course, that could be covered in that project contingencies number there. Prices have been crazy, as you guys have seen. So I've tried to make sure that these are as up to date as we possibly can get. I feel like they are, but there again, if manufacturing doesn't pick up and labor keeps going down, then or number of hours people are going to work keeps going down, then it could drive it a little higher, obviously. So I do have a second page here, and this, I'm sorry, I keep hitting that. It's so small. I didn't see it.
We've got about 8 minutes just so. that you know.
Okay, all right. Then I'll try to take it home then. So you guys, I think, have seen this before from me, and what I'm doing is the way I see capital improvements plans and the way that they are, or that I believe they exist, are as living creatures. And so this, you'll note, has changed from the last one that you've seen, and that one changed from the one before that. And so all that I can talk about is what I know up to right now. Okay, so you could read through this, but I'll basically give you an idea of what we looked at here. The one thing that's the same in all these that I've given to you, basically over the next 3 years, what this says now, it's over the next 2 years. The rate increases that we had passed this last time are expected to provide approximately $495,000 in additional funds that could be used for capital improvements projects. And then I go down into a table that shows you the first line is 2021 sewer rehabilitation project, $1 million. Now, I've had higher numbers than that before. Let me tell you what the $1 million reflects, because it actually talks about it in the second paragraph that I've written here below the proposed schedule. But that $1 million is basically the CDBG project plus approximately $300,000 of, well, 370,000 is what I say down here, approximately $400,000 of the city's money from water and sewer funds, which would be for the CDBG rehab project that's actually going to be bidding in the first part of next month. Okay, that 370 number is not a number that the city really knows right now. The reason it's there is, as you guys know, we put the rehab project out for bids. It will open bids on, I think it's the 9th of next month. Is that right? November the 9th. So on November the 9th, we'll open bids. Well, last week I opened a project, same type of project, similar scope for West Warren Viola. And I based my new cost estimate from that project on what my new information, well, what your project's on now. I used the information that I got over there from that bid because I expect the same people to bid on it. And what that ended up bringing me up to was we had originally submitted a project to CDBG for funding that had the overall scope of it was, I believe, $710,000. But for construction, it was, I think, $574,000. We had some additional money that was in there for inspection, which Ricky said that the city will handle the inspection. I believe that was around $30,000 to $40,000. So that brings you up to having a little over $600,000 to spend in that. Whenever I've costed out, projected out based on the information that I received last week from bids, I'm looking at a construction cost of around $800,000 now. And so if it hits 800,000, that means that's an additional 200,000 more, of course, than what we thought it was going to be. And so that's the reason that you see the number now being 370 versus what we had in the past. And so we've got the 630 that we'll get from the Community Development Block Grant Project, 370,000 from McMinnville Water and Sewer. I try to estimate these things higher than what I think that they'll come in at. You saw that on Center Street whenever we did that project. We came in quite a bit lower than what we thought we would. I hope we do here too. I just want to always make sure that we project out. Yes, sir.
So bids will open up on the 2021 sewer rehabilitation project. What's the estimated conclusion of that project?
Right now I have I believe in that bid, I have 240 days. We would probably start sometime in January, February, depending on rain. So by the end of the year, basically you'd be finishing it out. I guess actually sometime around September would be, you're looking at 240 days away from. And I have here on this list proposed end date 11/16/2022, so that'd give us time for cleanup. And then on the water treatment rehabilitation or the water treatment plant improvements, I have the 5.7 that we looked at. I've got that listed here, as well as a future 2023 sewer rehab project listed. Altogether, that adds up to $8.2 million. That's a little bit lighter than the one that I showed you last time. The reason for that is, as we continue moving on with sewer rehab, Heath and his guys are out in front of me working on sewer rehab. And so anything that they can do in-house, they're trying to do. And so that saves on what our ultimate capital expenses are here. Even if they spend a little bit more money than what we anticipate out of the water and sewer budget, it's still going to end up helping you guys because we're not paying a contractor to do that.
How did you reference the 3.6 million? We have an unrestricted cash.
Yes, sir. On the second page.
Yes, on third page.
Yes, on the third page.
Why is that even? I mean, we have water and sewer in a enterprise fund.
That's the enterprise fund's unrestricted cash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not the
No,
general
that's
fund.
this,
Okay.
when I'm talking about here, this is the water, this is
Okay,
the
that's the
water and sewer.
enterprise.
Yes, sir.
Right. It just says we have, that in our-
Sorry, for
which is
water
about
and
what we
sewer.
have in other sewer.
Okay, well, that's also about what you have. In fact, is it more now? What is it now? 4.2 right now.
I'm on that state revolving loan board. And we have a meeting next month and I'm not really sure what the trend as far as percentage numbers of interest rates going to be or where the direction they're going. They're holding pretty steady right now.
Sure. The one that they sent to us, and I've got which I don't think it says it in this letter that I have, but I brought the letter that was sent to the mayor on July the 16th about your funding. The information that I had, the list actually showed you having a 0.42% interest rate for it over the 20-year period. They tack on a 0.08% for their own purposes, so it takes it to 0.5. So that's what I've estimated in here is what we would have. Basically, the 5.7 million, if you look at it over 20 years, you'd be looking at about a $300,000 a year principal and interest payment. If you look at this third page that I have here, the way that this works out is the first column is what I anticipate that the water and sewer fund would be taken in each year, regardless of the rate increases. The next column is the year 1 rate increase. The next column is the year 2 rate increase. The next column is the year 3 rate increase. Okay. Then after that, I look at additional loan repayment and depreciation. I say sewer rehab phase 1, water treatment plant upgrades. You notice I've got around $300,000 in those 2 line items per year. Then you go over and you look at additional capital improvements. These are capital improvements that we anticipate. So in that first line, that 800,000 that I have, and then the 480 below it, parts of those are going to be that part of that 370,000 that I'm talking about, because the 630 is the grant, and then you're going to match it with additional funds. And then as you go down that list in the blue column, the additional capital improvements, that's just additional improvements that you might make, you may or may not make based on, what you find. Okay.
We're just about out. We're just about out of time. That's a tremendous amount of information. I really appreciate you giving that to us.
Sure.
But where do we go from here on that? That's a 5-course meal right there. So we're gonna have to take a minute to digest that. I personally don't have a problem with what the crux of this was, to authorize you to go ahead and start plans for this. And I would entertain a motion to authorize him to start getting the plans and specifications together for this, because the ramp up time is extended. And that's all we would be authorizing, is him to move ahead with his engineering portion. No other financial commitment at all at this time, other than getting him going. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Sally and a second from Rachel Kirby. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And I do not believe we have any further business for the Water and Sewer Committee. This committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We ought to go look at it. It's
Agreed.
helpful to go look.
Agreed.
I went
Agreed.
through it when I heard, and it was very interesting. So.
It is 7 o'clock. We will call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The first item on the agenda is roll call. Thank you. The second item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. Each member of the board should have received those in their packet. If there be no request for additions, corrections, or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to dispense with those as read.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Stacy Harvey. Second by Mr. Steve Harvey. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 3 is recognition of visitors. Any member of the audience who wishes to address the board, please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
I could tell you my name, but I think all of y'all know me very well. Carrie Morton, 942 Indian Mound Drive. On Friday, I sent, for the most part of you, a video and an email. I hope all of y'all got to see that. I had hoped I would have somebody reach out to me other than one, but anyway, that's why I'm here tonight. Does anybody have any questions over the video that I sent? Does everybody understand what's happening with the inadequate storm drainage that we have? It is a big problem. I've reached out to Nolan. I've met with him in his office, and he's got a meeting set up for this Thursday. Anybody that would like to come, please come and watch some more videos, because I have more of them for you. Might bring some popcorn to this one. So my building and the 2 other buildings in front of me have had lots of damage, especially over the past, I think the lady at Verizon told me she's replaced carpet now twice in probably the last 4 to 6 months. So that's a huge cost. So on Monday, we get our property tax notice, and on Wednesday, we have another flood. So makes everybody real happy, because we're spending our money to try to help improve the city's, everything in the city, and then that's what happens. That's what we're doing. Now, Stacy has been to my facility, and he has seen this firsthand. He has seen what happens. Now, these storm drains back there, and I know I come to a meeting, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, when it's, if you're the low man on the totem pole, too bad for you. And you can't sue the city. I got all that. But those storm drains are inadequate, and they have been there since probably the beginning of any of that building along North Chancery Street, all the way up to the Civic Center. So anytime people have bought a building permit along the way, anywhere from the Civic Center down to my way, nothing has been done with that storm drainage. No upgrades, no anything. So it's going to be up to you guys to find some funding to put in to help these things like this not happen. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago when Mr. Chris on Morrison Street came, but it's the same thing over there. These storms, it doesn't matter if you can clean them out or whatever, there's going to have to be some extras put in somewhere. I mean, even the storms, the drainage all the way across North Chancery Street is going to have some extra stuff. It just can't honestly hold the water that it's taking on now. So I don't know if that's retention ponds. I mean, put a silo in to hold the water or whatever, build a dam. It doesn't matter, but I'm asking you, this is some serious stuff. property owners can handle it for a little bit, but when it is excessive and it is continuous, I'm asking you to really take a serious look at this. And, I sent you an email for a reason because I wanted you to see what it's like. So ask yourselves, if that were your property and this was happening, what would you do? Where would you go?
Can I interject something
Yes.
here just for content? When I did go over there and inspect that, obviously we got a problem. We got problems everywhere, but the adjacent property owner, do you know what the address of the property, that single family residence just to the, if you're standing in your back door looking out on Pier Street, do you know what that address is right there?
One is 106 and one is 110.
Okay, so if you're looking at Pier Street with your shop at the back, that would be 106.
Yes.
The rear yard in that area, of course, it slopes from Pier Street back to the back of a building owned by the Walling family. And the floor elevation in the Walling family is elevated about 18 inches. And so what that does is that creates a big pond right there. And then her elevation is lower than the Walling building. And so it gets into her building because that's the path of least resistance. So that property owner right there inadvertently, we've created a settling pond right there for that. And when the water level gets high enough, it just comes into her building because it's got nowhere else to go. So we might need to work with that property owner to be sure that we've got a way to evacuate that water, because the Walling building is a dam and whoever that is backyard there is the pond and you're the overflow.
But do you know, even that concrete, the building that's built up, it even got water in it.
Wow.
That lady that is running that, my father's closet. Yeah, she didn't know it until yesterday because she'd been out of town. But I went over and talked with her and we walked in and it smells awful in there. It's soured because they had some carpet in there. And, and she's collecting things for
children that have been taken
right.
from their families.
Foster children. So she's taking that. So she's got damage too. So she's a volunteer. So here she is, volunteers, working her tail off, trying to help things. And then she's got things that's in their room too. So anyway, it's a mess. I look forward to working with Nolan, but I hope you guys understand what an issue these things are. I put my house on top of Harrison Ferry Mountain right now and not come back into this city if it took not having any more water issues. But this is 2021 and we've got some of the smartest and some of the best technology there is. And there's got to be some way of stopping this mess. So unless y'all like to continue seeing me up here, I'll be glad to come here and talk to y'all every 2 weeks, but I'm sure you'd rather not. So anyway, I look forward to seeing Nolan on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
I guess it's my turn. My name is Neil Schultz. I represent McMinnville Heritage Preservation. And this is, on this subject, is not my first rodeo. 10, 15 years ago, we got 100% approval by the board to have the blue building, which we don't call the blue building, by the way. We call it by its historical name. It's the Munford Mansion City School, 150-year-old building. But anyway, we were approved to sell the blue building. And then came along Strategic Wire. Everybody remember Strategic Wire? And we stepped aside for Strategic Wire. And we had a small school that was interested in coming to McMinnville. What we wanted to do, we had our main goal is to save our last large heritage site for the benefit of the people to come. I'm 85 years old. I'm a native here. And I came back home because I love this community and there's a lot in this community to love. I like to grow up in the shadow of Ben Lomond Mountain, but also there's the people in this town are the people that I wanted to be with. All right. Are y'all familiar with the Roundhouse Street Gang? All right. Shot Nunley. Mayor Norman Rowan, Judge Chuck Haston. And there's others. Alan Myers. Anybody know Alan Myers? Alan Myers, you should. He grew up on Lynn Street. He was instrumental in Cape Canaveral being developed. He's an aeronautical engineer. We had a lot of interesting people on the Roundhouse Street gang. Anyway, so that's our main point, is to try to save our last heritage. It's place that is in McMinnville. It's the blue. I'm stopped with the blue. Anyway, the Munford Mansion School had thousands of our citizens were educated there. When I graduated in 1950, there were 1,000 people in that school. So I do have one thing a little more interesting. I start to bore you this, but I have $10,000 in my pocket to offer the city for a specific reason. And that's because we're very concerned that the leaks in the roof of that building are becoming, starting to cause significant damage. We understand there is maybe a chance that the building will be used by whoever you sell this building to, but we don't know when that's going to occur. So my presentation is for $1,000 a month, we'd like to have a short-term lease for the specific purpose of repairing the roof on that building. Now, we don't want to throw away $10,000. You could sell it to somebody that's going to tear down the building. That possibility exists. One of the things that I was going to present, other than ask for a lease, month by month, and also if you sell the building, we would relinquish the lease. But what would we do is repair the leak to keep the damage from, it's serious. I was with a group from Middle Tennessee University, came from their heritage group. We inspected the building. I've got thousands of pictures, but there is a pool of water sitting in the main hall. And I said, this one that wasn't there when we inspected the building a little while back. So I said, this is a point where if this building is going to be used as apartments or whatever, then this damage will be significant and a drawback. So anyway, that is something I want you to consider. There's another thing I want you to consider. This is a large historical building. I have also been in this situation before. When I served in the Navy and I was through, I said, I'm coming home to serve, to build a practice. I bought the Maloney Hospital building. Anybody here even, it's been gone for 50 years. Anybody seen it? Know what I'm talking about? No. Yeah, there you go. Okay. The Maloney Hospital building was built in 1830 by a man named Washington Britton. It was built with the same architecture as the Hermitage. Now, the Hermitage, the first Hermitage burned. Did y'all know that? Okay. It had the same architecture, large building on Main Street. So I, with some others, I bought that building and built an office in there, a dental office. And within a year, a group came and said, we want to buy this building. The building, actually, if you want to know where it is, Tejan's is there now, and all that space, there's one lot that goes in there. So the people that wanted to buy it said, if you sell us this, you'll be able to build a brand new office, a brand new dental office, and not have to be in this old building. But this old building was, it was a magnificent old building. It was a long sidewalk lined with maple trees on each side, and it's a very large building at the end. So I sold it. I said, okay, I'd like to have a brand new office and make the profit. I only had it a year. Now, why I'm talking about this is I watched the bulldozers take those maple trees down. I started to get a little sick because I said, now what have I done? All right. But they took them down and then they did something else. They created one of the most, I call heinous eyesores on Main Street you have. They have put a dumpster right on your main street. And they've poked in your eye and said, now look at it. If you stand on the outside of Graves Pharmacy and look across the street, you'll see what happened to me. And I started to get this disease, and I don't want you to get this disease because you have. I call it civic remorse. I had a sick feeling when those bulldozers took that down, and I'm even sicker. Every time I drive through our beautiful town and see that dumpster facing Main Street, then I asked the people later that I sold that building to, I said, this was several years later, I said, if I'd held out and asked for more money, would you give it? They said, oh, sure. You had the cards. Without that building, we couldn't have built Kroger's. Couldn't done it. I said, if I'd held out of which way the front faced, either Morford or Maine, would you have done that? So of course, you still had all the cards. We couldn't do our project. You had the ability to tell us where to put the dumpster in the back service entrance. You don't think I got sicker. I don't want you all to get sick. If you sell the Blue Building and somebody creates an eyesore, it's a handsome, I'm prejudiced. It's a handsome, beautiful, old historic building. And it's built very strong. You can keep it and you can tell the people, whoever, here's what I'm asking, to have a stipulation that when you sell that building, that they will keep our historic Munford Mansion. You can do that, and we can bring people in town. There's a chance we can have a lot of increase in the economy of downtown just by expanding that area. Okay. Now, my wife said, boy, when you get started, you just run off at the mouth. So I've done that, and I apologize. Now, I've got one last thing, if you'll let me. When I was in that school, the Munford Mansion School, and graduated in 1950, I'd been there since 42. We had an area of that campus we call Ugly Hill. Now, did anybody here ever heard of it even? You know about Ugly Hill?
I started there in 19.
Ugly Hill is the east campus of that property. There's nothing on it but rocks and brush, and that's the way it's been for 150 years. With exception, it does have a set of steps that go to nowhere. We never have figured out where those steps go to. Never saw anybody use them. But we have a landscape architect that we had at the Methodist Church that was a friend of Bill Boyd, and he volunteered to landscape a whole block. You got a whole block of McMinnville, the Methodist Church from Chantry Street to High Street and all the way around to Remington Square. And if you take a look at that, this is the landscaping done by this person that I'm going to recommend that he take a look at Ugly Hill and maybe make something out of Ugly Hill. And he thinks he can. But we have no authority, see? That's why we want to go back to the lease. If we leased it, we'd fix the roof and hire an architect to fix our Ugly Hill. That's basically, I should have said that in the beginning. That's what. Other than I don't want you to get what I call civic remorse, and it can happen. Any questions? I still am proud to be in McMinnville. I hate to lose things. One of the worst things was seeing that park go away one morning when the bulldozer went through. You all know how that happened too, that there was nobody that approved that act. It was done without approval. The city couldn't claim it and the county couldn't either.
Thank you, Mr.
And so they
Schultz.
just did it. It's gone. Okay, I guess that nobody's told me to sit down, but I'm expecting that to happen. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
Any others? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, recognition of employees. There are several department heads here this evening. If anyone wishes to recognize an employee this evening, now's the time. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, communications. There are none in the packet. Anything coming after? No. Item 6 is petitions. There are none. Item 7 is unfinished business. Does any member of the board have any unfinished business to discuss this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, new business. Does any member of the board have any new business to discuss this evening?
I do. After hearing a lot of things over the last few years about stormwater, and we've had a lot of people up here, including Ms. Hayes, Ms. Morton, and Mr. and Ms. Crisp. We're about to come into a windfall of the ARP money to the tune of about $4 million. One of the studies that I'd like to see, or one of the things I'd like to spend that money on, is a study to find out what we can do with the stormwater we're getting. It's going to continue to get worse as we go, as the city grows, as we put more buildings down, as we pave more. It's only going to come worse. And I know that we don't have any legal liability to do this, but we owe it to our citizens to try to stop the situation. I think the changes in weather patterns are going to make it worse also. So what I'd like to propose is that when we set up the money for the ARP fund and start deciding what we're going to use it for, I would like to do a stormwater study, get licensed engineers in this realm, and see on a citywide basis what we can do. Every time we build something, every time we have a parking lot, it just creates more problems. In doing this, I know that Nolan has probably already started this thing, but I would like to have him start collecting projects, if you will. You probably got a list already, a page long, and start collecting these projects. And I think everybody on this board ought to be contributing to that list. And at some point in time, I'd like for us to set up an ad hoc committee that we can sort through these and prioritize them so that we can plan for what we're going to do with this $4 million. Now, this money is obviously limited in scope. We can't use it for everything. We can only use it for certain things, but water, wastewater, our storm system, everything, our treatment plants, those kind of things, we can definitely use it for. And as things get more clear with those funds, we're going to be able to use it hopefully for more things. Again, I'd like to have us at some point in time, after we get a list of these projects, set up an ad hoc committee to go through, again, prioritize them and try to set money values on them and do what we need to do. And at the same time, that group can also maybe look for some short-term fixes, working with Frank and people and possibly Ricky, and see if there are some short-term solutions that we haven't seen yet. I know we gripe at them every time that we have a situation like this, and they do what they can do, but maybe there's some ways that we can do something a little bit different if we throw some money at it. I don't know. But I'd like to get this discussion going, whether we put it on the agenda for the next meeting or how we do it. But I'd like to get the list going. I'd like to get everybody to contribute to that list. But again, on the top of the list, I'd like to see the stormwater survey. It's gotten to a point where it's affecting a lot more people than just her or anybody else that's been up here. And
Can I
Yeah.
contribute to
Sure.
that? I'm just curious, how many stormwater projects do you think we have, Nolan?
I mean, opportunities to improve our stormwater.
Well,
or-
ones that we know that are significant problems like Ms. Morton's.
Off the top of my head, I would say 5.
Is
yeah,
there,
I can
is
count
there,
4 right now, so.
is there a potential that we could, if we're looking at doing a study, can we go ahead and do a call for bids to look at those specific projects? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a call for bids. It's not a, and that way, when we come into the money, we've got the bids and we can.
But
act on
bids
that.
for what?
For assessment of
We're-
these particular problems.
We're gonna have to have somebody tell us what we need to even bid. Because I certainly am not an expert on storm runoff water, but the answer is yes, we can proceed, because assuming that we can count this under the ARP money, which I think we can, and we do have people we can go to and ask them that question. But assuming it will, which I think it will, we can go ahead and spend money right now and it's still covered. Anything that is after March 1 of this year is covered retroactively. So yeah, I'd like to get the process started as soon as
I
possible.
think we need a committee meeting then of streets and sanitation. Correct, to kick that off, Mr. Brock Shirley, is that correct? We need to schedule a committee meeting to formalize that and recommend that to the board.
Sure. I think that's a good start, and we're gonna, like I said, I don't know who we have to go hire, but there are people that out there that do this. I think you told me that Chattanooga had just done a similar type study for the whole city of Chattanooga. Obviously, ours won't be that complicated or extensive, but I'd like to start that. And maybe we talk to people in Chattanooga to get the names of engineers or engineering firms, or we can do that.
But you're talking about just going ahead with the study to look at our host stormwater for the host city.
We don't know what to do until we get the study. That's the
Okay,
problem.
well, yeah, I didn't want to,
I
I
think,
didn't
that-
want, I think we were getting a little too fast, too far. We would.
no, I think that,
Issues around town.
I think that Frank and people in his department have probably done as much as they possibly can. Like over at Miss Hayes's house, that's an issue that, has been on our radar for such a long time, and you go and you do some things, but it doesn't stick. And the things that are happening at Ms. Morton's place are probably a direct result of everything from the Civic Center downhill. And there's nothing except asphalt, concrete, and that type of thing. And there's got to be a way of diverting this into storm sewers or whatever it may be. And that's what I want the study, the engineering people to tell us in the study. How do we do this? Then we can put a cost in it.
Yes.
But if we start now, we can get that ball rolling. And we can spend money today doing that. But we're going to have to find these people, get a quote from them, and then authorize doing that. And then, like I said, I think that there's not a problem in doing it as far as the ARP money. It looks like it would be right down the alley for that.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Nathaniel, does your firm offer this type of consulting?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Because it seems to dovetail into other work that you're doing with the city.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a meeting for Thursday with Nathaniel to discuss the Pierce Street issue already. So
What time is that
Yeah,
meeting
yeah.
on?
10:30, 11.
11.
11 where?
Well,
It's not
I may
gonna
have
be
to
in your
change
office
it.
anymore, I don't think.
I may have to change the location.
Okay.
So City Hall. So we
11?
could meet in here if we have to,
At
11 o'clock. Also, if I could speak to the Morrison Street issue, we did review the TV footage again. Wait, let me go back to Pierce Street. Public Works and Water and Sewer has been out there all day, and they'll be out there for the remainder of the week, TVing everything there to see what's there. Maybe uncover any issues that are obvious. obviously, I think we need to do the whole study like you're talking
Yeah,
about.
but that's what I was talking about, the short-term
Yeah.
things too, that we might be able to do.
So they're out there working on it right now. Back over to Morrison Street, we looked at the TV footage again. We think we've got one place to work on immediately that may positively impact reducing the flooding there. We've talked to TDOT. They've not really cooperated with us. So we're going to go ahead, do our fix. It's on General Shales property. We've talked to them and cleared it. We're good. We do think that TDOT could install a culvert more directly across from the Crisps house that would also positively help. But so we're working on that. I think towards the end of this week, we'll be doing that work, actual work to that storm sewer. So
if I might interject something, you might not know it, but you got TDOT's attention because I went by there the morning after that last rain and I followed a TDOT guy around. I was looking at that. And I think that when we look at that, we probably need to look at the drains behind Westwood Church of Christ, because those drains were clogged, totally clogged. And so when that water backs up, it's pushing it somewhere else. And I mean, it's, I'm not saying it's our problem or they're a problem, but it is something I think that they're a little undersized for the area that they have. And it's contributing to the water backing up over there, in my opinion, when the drains don't work because they were clogged totally.
yeah, so there's several different elevation changes between the point of entry on Morrison Street of the water and where it exits back towards the railroad tracks. So it's got to go down, down, down. It collects water from different angles. And the 18-inch pipe does reduce to a 15 towards the back, the very end of that run. So that's item number 2 that we would look at fixing, is upgrading that 15-inch to an 18-inch. So we've got a little bit of a plan there to hopefully help. So.
Okay, great. Well, like I said, it's bothered me knowing that, okay, we don't have a legal liability here, but it bothers me that we've got people in our community that are more and more being affected by storm runoff water. And again, every time we build something, it's just going to get worse. So that's my proposal.
One thing that I consider is I hear these, how do we keep track of these projects? How does the public keep track of these projects? I would love to see us having some type of public tracking of city projects that is on the website that we can update quarterly. That way department heads can be publishing what the status is. So if we have Morrison Road, flooding on there, they can see what the last action was, whether that's, contacting TDOT or TDOT is planning on doing this, target dates and things of that nature.
The city's Facebook page would be great for that. It would be very easy to follow, easy to hashtag something and everybody keep up with it that's effective. It would be a great
It would allow the citizens to look at there at the end of every quarter and say, okay, there's this update. And sometimes there might not be an update because of we're waiting for bids or we're waiting for other things, but at least they could know that project has been heard and it is on our radar.
I will say that we do have that mechanism internally through Teams. However, sharing it out to the public, that I agree 100%. I would love to have that. So we will look into how to do that.
Anyway, that's my proposal, and it sounds like everybody seems to think it's a good study to do. So let's get the ball rolling.
One other
We can
thing
talk
is
to you on Thursday too.
we have Lyndon on staff who is going to school for this to be an engineer in stormwater specifically.
Okay.
So he has been helping out quite a bit more than we've ever had on.
Yeah,
on
I
staff.
just want a citywide look at this
Yeah,
thing.
I
Not
agree.
neighborhood, not house, not her shop, everybody, the whole city,
Yeah.
because it's going to then be able to tell us from a building permit standpoint that we don't want to issue a permit in this area, or if they do, they're going to have to comply with these types of things that will mitigate. Whether they can't have a concrete driveway or they can have a rainwater dispersal area or something.
And to that point, the Milner Center has the giant pond out front. That doesn't look like a pond because there's not usually any water in it, but it's a retention pond. So it was built specifically for that purpose, to retain the rainwater on site and reduce the runoff.
Right. But
Same with the
everything
curbs.
everything that goes below that pond on the asphalt is going to end up at our shop.
We also removed the curbing from the parking lot in hopes that that would allow the water to run off into the planting areas and stay on site too. Obviously not going to have the huge impact, but anything that we see that we can do, we're going to do it. So
I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to be small things that add up to a big thing. But
yeah,
again, I'm not the engineer on the project.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll just say, thank you, Mr. Brock. I can guarantee there's a lot of people out there right now that are appreciative of that. So I thank you for them.
Any other member of the board have new business?
I'd like to hear what Mr. Pirtle has to say about Dr. Schultz's proposal and how that might conflict or work or with the current status of our REP.
We're already in the process. The publication has already been published, requesting proposals for the development and or demolition of the blue building property, and I'll let David speak to it. He's the author of it.
I was going to speak to this in departmental reports, but if you'd like for me to go ahead. So I appreciate Mr. Schultz's comments, and can kind of add to that a little bit is that I wanted to make mention tonight that we haven't had any responses yet to the RFP, but that's not surprising. Having been someone who was responding to RFPs, I can tell you those usually come very much at the last minute. So I would expect that to happen probably next week. Our electronic submittal deadline is actually Wednesday night at midnight for that. So I would suspect again that those would be coming in next week. The thing about the RFP process, and of course we had a lot of discussions about this, is that this is a proposal that you as the board of mayor and aldermen can really pick what you believe is in the best interest of the city and downtown redevelopment. So it really is a mechanism to where you can you don't have to go with the highest bid, but you can go with a bid that would maintain the building. And again, you're not bound by that RFP, so it doesn't absolutely mean you have to select one from that. So because of those different aspects of the RFP, I do think it is something that you could discuss tonight and make a decision as to whether you would want that short-term lease. It's going to take a couple months for us to work through the whole process. So as I understood Mr. Schultz's request is a short-term lease in priority to fix the roof. And so that would be something that obviously someone who's potentially looking to buy the building and restore the building would like that, because that would reduce the cost that they have to do for restoration, and it wouldn't make the situation get any worse. So again, the great thing about the RFP process is that it's flexibility and your ability to either accept a proposal that is deemed for restoration, or to wait a little bit later and then accept that. So that's really one of the great things about it, and it's been used throughout the state. So any questions about that?
David, is there any way, I know there's one huge hole in the roof. I mean,
Mhm.
I say huge, yay big.
Yeah.
Is there any way of us temporarily patching that with, even if such low tech as tarps?
Yeah.
it would at least keep that water from coming in, where it shouldn't be.
Right. I think I'd defer to Nolan since he spent a lot more time in the building on that as to what that $10,000 would get us as far as repair calls.
It might patch just the area that's leaking, obviously.
Yeah.
There's areas on both ends. The one that's closer to Chancery Street is bigger and causing the most damage. But obviously the other one, if we don't address it sooner than later,
It's going to be as big.
will be just as big. So my initial question was as far as the building being insurable. And I think we need to discuss that, number one.
Yeah.
And
I just don't understand why we can't. Even
Oh, as far as fixing
a
the
tarp
holes.
or
Yeah,
something, I mean, that's low tech.
yeah,
But if you want to go down on the Gulf Coast after a hurricane, you'll find out that everybody has a blue roof. I mean, it's not the fix, but it's,
yeah,
it keeps water out of your house.
yeah.
Mr. Schultz, I got the impression that you had potentially additional funding for the repair of the roof. Is that correct?
Yes, it is interminable, but a lot, we have, at one time, we had considered spending $77,000 for a roof, but actually a new roof. And then we decided that the new owner might want a different kind, so we backed off of that. We got that kind of money right now. I'm good. My wife would, if she were here, she said, "Now just keep quiet."
She's
We
not
do
here.
have better than $10,000.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Pirtle,
There are a couple of things you're gonna have to consider. Number one, this is a proposal from the floor during the open mic session. This is not public notice, and the board could not take an enforceable vote to lease the property to anyone additional. And it would also, and you're the planner, and I defer to your expertise in that regard totally. But we do have to be keenly aware of Nolan's point that we've been informed, as I've understood it, that the building is not insured for third-party liability at this juncture, that the building is essentially uninsurable. And the third thing is we pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
The process for the RFP, process has been triggered. It's in process. If we encumbered the property, even with a short-term lease, even that involves a nominal amount of money, I think that it presents certain legal issues that I haven't really thought about.
Yeah, I can certainly see Mr. Burrell's point on number 3, particularly number 2, which is information I wasn't even aware of, that it's not uninsurable, which is a significant issue. But yeah, it could affect the RFP timeline. I'm not sure how long of a short-term lease it would be. If it were pretty quick, maybe it could work, but obviously there are additional issues that would have to be thought through as to whether it would even be feasible to do.
If I
wouldn't
understood,
rule it
Mr.
out.
Schultz, it was month to month.
Aren't you, Neil, I hope I'm not over speaking, but you and I have talked about this a lot, and you are submitting a proposal, correct?
And I
Yes.
did need to add this, we are a 501c3 public benefit corporation, so that might help.
what if we can't take action on this, and I don't even know if this is possible, but could the organization just gift this money to the city and there not even be a need for a lease?
Of course.
Yeah.
We can accept donations.
That would be a much easier route.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be clean. But anything that has to do with the title or a legal cloud or impediment on the title to the property
Yeah.
could have significant ripple effects as far as the RFP goes. It would if I were looking at it.
Yeah,
For an
that's
outside.
that's certainly possible.
May I
Absolutely.
ask one more question, just to put up maybe a finer point on that? Is it possible for us to take the action and then take a donation to cover the expense? Because it would be impossible for us to know the expense ahead of the action, in my opinion.
I
over
don't
there.
think you can take any action tonight because.
Oh, understood, understood.
You're talking about action. to patch
I'm just
stuff,
talking about, yes, if we decide as a group that we're going to go ahead and repair this roof to stave off any further damage, if there was a donation that was offered, it would seem to me that we might need to determine what those costs are and then take the donation to cover the expense after the expenses have been incurred. If we were going to declare that to be done under the auspices of a donation.
I don't think the board has to vote on whether to accept a donation. or not.
Well, I'm talking about the specific amount attached to the item of work that we would decide on.
It's only the vesting of legal rights in the property and a third party that gives me heartburn.
Yeah,
So
and I can understand that.
we could either call a special building and grounds committee meeting maybe next week if that's feasible, or if not, we can just have it in 2 weeks at the end of October. And that's 2 weeks we have to wait to do anything, but
I'm fine with doing it next week. Well, I'll be out of town.
Do you need
You could still have.
do you need a
could still have
meeting
that.
to authorize a bid on patching two parts of the roof?
It's less than
Could you-
$10,000.
Could we just get that bid and then you could have your
That-
building and grounds committee meeting?
$10,000.
I hate to commit any staff to this, but seems like it could be done through maintenance budget and done in-house just to stop the water from coming in. That's what we're looking for, right? You're not looking to fix the
No,
whole
I,
roof.
like I said, low tech it, just find a way to keep the water, or most of the water, even if the sun gets through, fine.
I think that's a great idea, but I would caution you to not put anybody on that roof, Nolan.
Right,
That they need to work on equipment over the roof, not be under or on,
yeah.
period.
Or inside.
I talked to Jason Cripps about it, and he's turned in bids for the whole thing. He's looked at patching. He's seen it a lot of times, but I don't know how recently, but he would be, if you don't want to risk that in-house, he said it could be done. You know, I mean, whatever level of repair you want to do.
And he's insured, so.
Right.
And my
They're
final
used to-
comment, nothing needs to be undertaken with regard to that structure without the advice and consent of PEP, who insures all city structures, even though that one has no insurable value. So Ms. Recorder Durham would need to give notice to PEP that someone, whether it's on a voluntary donation basis, someone is going on that property for the purpose of doing some kind of work. Technically, right now, PEP has the city under a requirement that we're not to enter or leave the building without their consent, with hard hats, hard-toed shoes, and whatever safety equipment you use.
I can investigate this starting tomorrow and come up with a plan, and we can go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 9, resolutions. Resolution 9A is resolution number 2143, a resolution of the city of McMinnville, Tennessee to name soccer field number 5 at Pistol Park in honor of James Barnes Senior and to set the date for the resolution to become effective. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Everett Brock,
Second.
second by Mr. Stacy Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Everett Brock,
Aye.
Stacy Harvey,
Aye.
Sally Brock,
Yes.
Steve Harvey,
Yes.
Rachel Kirby. Yes. Zach Sutton,
Yes.
Mayor Chastain.
Aye, motion passes. Item 10 is ordinances. There are none. Item 11 is departmental reports. We have several department heads here this evening. Anyone wish to address the board? Step to the podium. Chair recognizes Scott McCord of Parks and Rec.
Just invite y'all to come out. We drained the pool the past week and a half and still working on it. We pressure washed it. Looks fantastic. from the way it was. But just thank my crew. They've done a fantastic job. You know, we drained it 2 feet. It rains, it comes back. Drained it, rains. It's all the way it was last week, but yeah. And we're gonna get pictures out on Facebook, so.
Did you turn that city pool down?
Scott,
Viable question.
Director McCord, I just want to thank your staff and for the addition of the Sunday hours. I was out there Sunday and the basketball court was full of folks. And then when I came around, there's people on the upstairs court. And so it seems to be getting a lot of attention on Sunday, which hasn't been open in the past. So I hope it stays open on Sundays.
Are you painting the pool too?
Yeah, I was gonna
No.
ask too about the algae. Did that all come off with the
Yeah.
pressure washing and? Okay.
I was also there on Sunday and had a great time playing basketball. So surprised I didn't see you there, but there was a lot of people there.
And you were the first one to make a basket there, aren't
That's
you?
right. Yes, that's right.
Before the building ever started, you took a shot. His first one.
Zach was there. He was above you.
That's right.
He was the guy.
Chair recognizes David Baird, Community Development.
So I gave my first half, so I won't go into that, but I did want to invite everyone who's not on the planning commission. Obviously, Alderman Rachel Kirby and Mayor Chastain are members of that. But the reason I wanted to make mention of that is it's all, as you probably know, it's the last Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. And the reason I specifically wanted to make mention of that is that after our business items are concluded on this planning commission, we're going to have some agenda items to discuss things like potential revisions to the zoning code, potential revisions to the building codes, and other city documents that we may want to consider. So there are going to be some things coming up. I've spoken here to you at the board about a zoning ordinance critique that we're looking at. We've started that and we're engaged in that. So some of the findings that we're going to unveil that, if you will, at the planning commission meetings and then get some input from them. So I just would love to have any aldermen's feedback from that meeting, even those of you who are not actually on the planning commission. So thanks.
Mr. Purtle, do you have anything else?
No. Is
No.
it the 26th?
Yes. So let's see.
It is, yes.
The last. And so just as a point of clarification, it'll be every month as we kind of find more items, we'll just be discussing more and more things. So it won't just be this month, but we will have a substantial amount this month.
What time, David?
11 a.m.
Thank you.
And that is in this building?
I believe so. We've moved planning commission back here. Yes.
In this room.
In this room. Thank you.
Mr. Ming, do you have anything?
I do not.
All right, item 12 is announcements. Does any member of the board have any announcements this evening? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.